Right. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which certainly the Southern Sydney branch uh, resides on. And our speaker tonight, Mike Scotland, comes from the Dharawal country, and most of us are Dharawal. And for those from other places, Gary's now Dharawal now too. We acknowledge uh, the traditional owners of the land, pay our respects to them and to the elders past, present, and emerging. And we understand the land was never ceded. I also like to welcome everyone to the NPA Southern Sydney branch members meeting, which is extended to all. And we are continuing our series of interesting presentations. And tonight we are honoured to have a resident of Kirrawee, Mike Scotland, whose main passions are underwater photography and marine biology, as has been written up. Mike has written many articles on marine biology for numerous magazines. He learned to dive in 1976 and became an instructor at Cronulla 6 years later. He believes the Sydney marine environment is underrated and has some world-class marine life that is found nowhere else in the world. I've seen a few snippets of what Mike's got to present tonight. There was one such photo that he had that was taken in Botany Bay, and the colours, we will see this soon, were just absolutely stunning. Mike uses some filling lights and flashlights and what have you to take the photos, but the results are just a wonderful spectacle of colour. And tonight, I'm sure we're going to learn about various fish types and seahorses and things and see them in all their splendour. So with that as an introduction, I'm going to ask Mike to come on in and share your screen and entertain us. So over to you, Michael.
Do you see that?
Uh, are we seeing your screen? We need you to go to the presentation.
Oh,
We're seeing your computer. Just on your computer, get the slideshow up if you can.
yep, I'm there.
We're not seeing it.
Then I'll go to share.
Yeah, go to share. Well, you're on share actually, I think.
That better?
That's that. Now we need to maximize that. That's the starting slow show. For some reason, we've got you down the bottom left-hand corner. If you can just go to, where is it? Why is this happening? Try share screen again or whatever. This is not how it happened earlier. Can you see the can you see the slideshow icons at all, Michael? We're not
No,
seeing. Okay, just go to unshare again, start again if you can.
stop share.
Yeah, just try stop share and start again. Okay, yeah, okay, that's got you as a picture. Now just go to share screen. Have you got your computer on?
Yep,
Well, that's about the second or third photo. So if you can, gee, before you had it on full screen, we had it okay. We're somehow getting you down the bottom left-hand side and not the full picture. Whatever you did then, you disappeared. That would have been good.
that was video.
Down the bottom left-hand corner.
So turn that off, turn video off.
Yeah, yep. Okay. Now, can you full screen your slideshow?
Um,
There's usually a start slideshow you can click or
Yeah,
show the first slide.
that's
That usually gets it.
yeah. Oh boy. Okay, there's your slideshow. For some reason, it's minimizing. Just go back to that what you just had then, please.
Maybe go to from the beginning. See
Yeah,
the icon over the far
Yeah,
left.
we did that the other day, but yeah, just go top left, Michael.
yep. How's that?
Okay, well, it's not as big as it was a bit earlier, but at least you're at the first slide, so maybe you could continue. For some reason, it's not full screen. Anyway, away you go. Now you've come back off the slide. Hit that. Okay, now you should be able to give you a talk.
Righto. Okay. Thank you for everyone for attending my talk. It's mainly about the marine life of Sydney, because as you know, uh, where most of our marine life is endemic because of the geographical isolation of the southern half of Australia from the northern hemisphere. So most of our fish and species are endemic. Uh, so my main theme is the celebration of marine life, and I like to try and do a bit of research and hopefully to explain one or two things to people to help them to appreciate and enjoy marine life a bit better. Uh,
Can I just
During
get
this,
everyone to turn their screen off, other than Michael? Just Jenny Lay, if you can just close your video link. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. That's it.
so during this talk, if you feel like asking a question or interrupting, that's fine. So it makes it a bit more interactive. That's fine with me. Um, so getting started, the first little group of things I'm going to talk about, just give you a quick overview. I'm going to discuss the local species of sharks for a while, and then a detailed talk on weedy sea dragons and seahorses from the Sydney area. And then I'm going to do another little talk on the wrasse species. There's a very vibrant collection of fish called wrasse from this area. And that's probably all the time I'm going to have. So in this photograph, we've got a sponge garden, and there's a little damselfish there, the grey thing. It's called a, a, a palmer, a white-eared palmer. And the orange thing in the middle is a fan sponge. And the pink thing in front of it's a conjovoy. We call it a seed tulip. And the yellow thing on the right side is a kind of Gorgonian coral. So the dominant marine life is sponges and invertebrate life. So this is our local cling goby, and it's a cleaner fish. It actually gets onto blue gropers and other fish and plucks off the dead skin and the parasites. And it's about half an inch long. And one of the things I like to take a look at with these sort of fish is their breeding cycles. This particular photograph was taken in the first week in December. So that's when this fish is breeding. It's laid its eggs on a little, it's called a solitary blue ascidian. But one year when the water was especially cold, they didn't lay eggs until the end of January. So it's very much like freshwater fish. They probably use the water temperature as a trigger to breed for whatever reasons. So this is a very old photograph of me from the 1980s, having a selfie with the grey nurse shark. Grey nurse sharks are fish-eating sharks, and they're totally harmless. And most people are aware of that fact, but they still get a lot of incidental kills from humans, mainly from getting fish hooks caught in their mouths from set line traps. So this photograph here was taken at Maroubra, and you can see the shark in the foreground has got a number of gang hooks in its mouth. Now, there's a bit of a debate going on as to whether that will cause an infection and maybe kill the shark. And I don't really know the definitive answer, but it's probable that it can kill some sharks, and some sharks can survive having that sort of damage to them. But there's a little colony at the south end of Maroubra Beach that I dived there on last Saturday, and there were 5 juvenile grey nurses there. So it's a pretty special thing to have a little colony of grey nurse sharks that live in Maroubra in the middle of a city of 5 million people. We also have passing migrating great white sharks. I think they're around a fair bit, but one of the things that's pretty interesting about great whites is if you look at their eyeballs, they've got a really big eye, and it's really black with a gigantic pupil, because I think they spend a great deal of time down at like 100 to 200 metres, where it's very, very dark, and there must be a better food supply down there. But they do migrate up the coast, following the humpback whales and so on. And of course, the breeding is probably in central northern New South Wales, where they breed it near Port Stephens and Southwest Rocks and those sort of places. But they're around, but we don't see them ever, basically. This photograph was taken down in South Australia in a cage. So if anyone's got the Smart Shark app, you can see that if you go to somewhere like Southwest Rocks, you'll see there's about 50 great whites recorded around that area. So it's a bit of a hot spot for great whites, but most of them are only 3 metres long. Now, what these fish do is they eat fish from the time they're born until they're about 2.5 metres long. And when they get to about 3 metres, they start to transition to mammals. But some recent research has found that they're not particularly interested in eating flesh. They're far more interested in eating blubber. And the reason for that is that the females can't reproduce until they're probably close to 15 years of age. And they've got to be very, very large because there's an enormous biological cost of having babies. So it takes them a couple of years to build up enough biological reserves to create the eggs and then to be able to sustain a pregnancy. So their preferred food is blubber, and it sort of fits in with the observation that if they do bite people, they tend to taste them and then think, oh, the people are mainly muscle and flesh, and it's not their preferred diet. They prefer a seal, which is like much higher in blubber content, or whale. So that blubber is much higher in calories and therefore allows them to grow much bigger. And it's actually essential for a female to breed to have that massive calorie input. So once they have their babies, it takes 2 years before they're able to recharge their bodies and then breed again. And it takes them about a year to have their gestation. And then, so they think the cycle's about 3 years for breeding. Is everyone still there?
Yep.
Yes, Michael.
Still
Yeah.
here. Yes.
I've just got Sam on the call. She's going to
Yes.
see if we can fix up this screen and get rid of the Mike Scotland, or maybe she can, or whatever. Yeah.
Hi, Mike. It's Sam here.
Hello, Sam.
I'm actually not sure. I'm going to play around with. Not sure why it's doing this.
Yeah, we've got the repetition of the Mike Scotland on the bottom left there, and the photo's not going full screen.
Yeah.
I got him to get out of the presentation and get back in, but it worked perfectly when we started. Then we, as I say, we stopped for a while, and then we've got back to this sort of thing.
Mike, the only thing I can suggest is having a look at Power. You're on PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yeah, just have a look at PowerPoint at your end, and let's see. That's so weird. And if you
Set up slideshow or something.
if you play from current slide on the second from the left.
Yep.
Okay, I've never seen this before.
No, this has just happened. Now he's appeared at the bottom, and that's what happened before. For somehow, his little picture is appearing down the bottom left-hand side.
Yep.
And when he knocks off his video, he appears as well.
I really don't know why it's done this.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mike. At the top, where would it be? At the top right of your screen, Mike, there's a little there's an option for view. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
Can you click on that?
What's it called?
View.
It's called view. It's at the top right of the Zoom window.
Or even the minimize button might make it very top right, very far right, Michael, is a cross for getting out of everything, and then there's a rectangle next to that, and then coming across there's a minus sign, and then there's view. Can you see that at the very top of your screen?
No, hang on.
What have you got at the top right of your screen? on the Zoom function.
I've just got the one with audio, video, participants, chat, share, all that stuff.
Now that's down the bottom.
What do you want to do with it, peoples? I have been able to change the view setting from what it was to standard, bringing up the picture in the middle, but it doesn't not turn the picture into the full. If you want this slideshow to be showing,
Yeah.
I can't do that, of course. That's on the PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, that's better.
Well, that's got it bigger on that, but the actual box.
Yeah, but you want the PowerPoint to be full screen, don't you?
That's exactly right. That's what I'm trying to do.
And now that's not in here, not the bit that you're playing with. That's in Mike's PowerPoint system itself.
Well, it worked perfectly to begin with. When we started the very beginning of the meeting, it was full screen. Oh, what's that?
That's Mike playing with it.
Just go to 100% Zoom.
Yeah, that's going to help. It will be good.
And for some reason, the whole box of the PowerPoint is reduced.
No.
Well, that's the PowerPoint. We've still got your picture somehow coming down the bottom as well with Mike Scotland. Well, we've got Mike Scotland sort of coming down and getting presented as well. So we've got two images going.
Now we get rid of that.
Yeah, that's why I've got Sam, and hopefully Brian can help.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Mike's name is coming up, but I think that's probably not a major issue. I'm sorry, I have no solutions for this. Mike, if you can just go back to sharing from the current slide, so second from the left there. Sorry, not sharing. Start do the PowerPoint slideshow. Yeah, that's it. Look, I think that's probably as good as it's going to get.
Oh, it was a lot better yesterday and a lot better today. Okay.
All right.
The only other alternative is he tries to log out again and then come in again.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's going to help, to be honest.
All right, way you go, Michael. Sorry about all
that. Okay, so this is called the spotted wobbegong. It's one of the larger wobbegongs. It's got little spots on its body, and you can see they've got a white circle around them.
Yes.
So this is the very common species around Sydney, but unfortunately they get taken out by spearos a fair bit, and also they're quite territorial, and they also eat fishermen's gang hooks. This one here's got a sinker and a whole lot of hooks coming out of its mouth, and I think it's probable that this particular shark will end up dying because it won't be able to feed properly, and it's highly likely that it'll become infected. So that's also taken up at Maroubra. And one of the things we like to try and keep an eye on is last year on the 20th of May, we counted 18 wobbegongs at the place we call Magic Point, like at South Maroubra. And they were very aggressive, which is what they do, and they have a mating season. And they become far more active than they are the rest of the year, and far more territorial, if you like. But we're there on Saturday, and we only saw 3 little wobbegongs, so I don't know whether they've all mated and dispersed. Now that's the spotted wobbegong. This is another spotted wobbegong, and they seem to come in at different times of the year. This is probably late autumn as well, up at Port Stephens, and even though they hang around with Port Jackson sharks, if they get hungry, they actually will eat the Port Jacksons. I've seen photographs of wobbegongs trying to swallow a 4 foot long Port Jackson shark head first.
There's a question from Cheryl Kay in the chat, Michael, and it's are wobbegons protected? Or are they not protected?
No, and unfortunately they get killed by a lot of people. I think people, certainly 40 years ago, young boys would go out, get a spear gun and go and shoot a few wobbegongs and go and sell them for fish and chips. But these days they seem to get a lot of incidental attention from humans, and they have a real struggle to survive. So,
But are they protected or are they not protected?
no, not totally unprotected.
Ah.
Almost nothing in the sea's got any protection that's worthwhile. This is the other species of wobbegong. This was taken in May last year, and you can see that my buddy with his camera there, he didn't see the shark underneath him. That's the female, and she's about to do a push-up, and she's about to sort of, what they do is they lift themselves up in their pectoral fin, and they launch like a rocket. So he's obviously a bit too close to her, and the one in the foreground, you can see it's also got spots on its body, but they've got a black margin around each of the spots, and they've got very pronounced bands. They've got heavy brown bands along its body. These ones are quite big. They were probably 7.5 feet long, and these are quite aggressive in the mating season. So that's the Hale's ornate wobbegong.
Would they bite a person or they could have caused
Oh yeah, they're quite because what a lot of people don't understand is that the wobbegong is a territorial shark and it's the apex predator. So if people go in there and spear fish and so on, then that fish belongs to the wobbegongs and they will claim the fish back. Like it's because the people who are spearing the fish are actually taking the food supply for the wobbegongs. And I don't think people understand that. They understand when they're fishing or spearfishing in the ocean that they're removing the food supply for the apex predators, and they're in direct competition. And that's sort of the problem I keep confronting is that there's 500,000 registered fishers in New South Wales, and they're all going after the food for the apex predators. So the poor old sharks and big rays and so on are competing with 500,000 fishers for their food. So it's a bit of a serious issue. I think very few people actually understand that when they catch fish, they're removing the food source for the sharks, which is the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, good point, Mike.
So that's Hale's ornate wobbegong. They get to about 3 metres. They're magnificent animals. And this is another shark that is being seen a lot more over the last few years, the leopard shark. And they're absolutely beautiful, docile shark. They're very almost friendly, and they will tolerate people getting quite close to them. They're not afraid at all. Their numbers are coming back. I think it's mainly because the fishing license has paid for the buyback of all the professional fishermen who used to probably convert these into fish and chips and flake and so on. So I think the population of like hammerhead sharks and leopard sharks, and a lot of the rays are starting to grow significantly because they're not taken as much as they were, say, 20 or 30 years ago. But these leopard sharks have come down from the barrier reef in the summertime, and we dive with them at Wooleye, and they're also being seen at Southwest Rocks, and there was a baby one seen in Sydney last year. So they're repopulating the New South Wales coast in the summer. Now you can see they've got a massive thing on the front of their mouth. And you can see this one here's got sort of scratches on it. What I think they do, I haven't seen this, I think they headbutt the sand. If they detect a crab or a fish living under the sand, they headbutt it, pin it down, and then eat it. So they've got a very powerful reinforced snout, if you like. So they can smash into the sand and catch food that's hiding in there. Of course, the thing about the grey nurses is that we try and observe their breeding cycles. They don't like warm water, and they seem to move around to their preferred water temperature, like a lot of sharks do. And so this is at Southwest Rocks, and the baby sharks, they get to about 5 or 6 feet, like to hide in this particular cave in October, November, and we think maybe they're hiding from the dangers of the great whites that are up there, getting a bit of protection. So it's kind of like a nursery. So people like to go there to get photographs of grey-nose sharks in silhouette. But they're certainly very heavily targeted by humans, but a lot of it's incidental bycatch and so on. But unfortunately, their numbers are still rebounding, but they're still getting a lot of deaths from human fish hooks and things, and human people spear them and whatnot. So, but anyway, they're a beautiful shark, beautiful natured shark, and you can see their teeth at the front there. They're specially designed for catching small fish up to about, say, half a metre, I guess. So it's time for a little advertisement break. I've written a book called Marine Biology in the Wild. It's a book designed to help people to learn about marine biology. So it's a series of lectures that I've put into a book form with photographs for people who are interested in studying. This is mainly invertebrate marine biology. So I've called it Great Age of Exploration Under the Ocean. That's a tribute to people like Humboldt and Livingstone, all the people who explored deep, dark Africa and the Amazon and in the 19th century, because in the 20th and 21st century, humans are exploring under the seas and learning about lots of new species of marine life. So anyway, that's a book I've written. So now I'm going to talk about sea dragons and seahorses. These animals are iconic for divers in the same way that koalas and kangaroos are iconic for Australians on the land, because they're such a unique animal. They're like a lot of things around Sydney. These things are found only in the southern half of Australia, so they're endemic. And Australia is a world hotspot for this particular family of fish. The family is known as the synnathids, which means the fused jaw. They're basically a toothless fish. So Australia has about half the world's species of sea dragons and seahorses and pipefish. So we have a very rich biodiversity in quite a lot of species. Another one is leather jackets. Another one is sea stars. And so we have, it's all part of our very unique marine ecosystem. So we're going to get to know the sea dragons a little bit. So we'll learn to identify males and females and a little bit about their breeding, feeding and life cycles and how to spot individuals. So the family of Syngnathidae with a fused jaw includes the sea dragons, seahorses, pygmy seahorses, Sydney's pygmy pipe horse, and ghost pipefish. Some related ones are trumpetfish and razorfish and so on. We have the leafy sea dragon from South Australia, which is probably the most famous one in the world. Often referred to as LSD, leafy sea dragon. Seahorses, of course, have got the prehensile tail. There's a lot of pygmy seahorses which only grow to 1 or 2 inches. And there's another group called ghost pipefish, which are a bit more distant related. But this is the main types of animals in the family. So we're going to focus on the sea dragons. Their name is Phylloteryx, which means phyllo is leaf, teryx is wings, so leaf-like fins. And the toniolotus bit means like ribbony appendages. So that kind of describes them, leaf-like fins and ribbon appendages. Now, when you see them, males or females look very similar, and it's very difficult to distinguish between the two. But if you look at that blue arrow there, it's pointing to a yellow spot, which is the cloaca under the tail. And you can see it's got a distinct right angle going to the left. And that's one of the features of a female, the right angle cloaca. And as you'll see in a moment, the males are slightly different. So here's a pair of them. It says females develop a slightly deeper torso. So the one on the right at the back is higher in the body or higher in the torso, and that's a female feature. As they get old, they get larger in the body, whereas the one in the front's a bit narrower, and it's a male. So there's a close-up. Being a marine biologist means you can take photographs of the naughty bits of fish and so on and get away with it. So you can see there, I'm guessing that the anatomical feature is so it can pass eggs out when it's about to mate. You'll see that the see-through fins above. All this family has very small fins that beat very quickly, sometimes up to 80 times a minute, and very rapid locomotion of a very tiny fin. So here's a male one. You can see that the cloacal range is quite different. It's sort of slopey and so on. So in this case here, it's easy to see. So there's the male with the angle cloaca. So that's how you tell male from female. And once again, so the male's at the front there, and the female's on the right and the back. On the 17th of June, unfortunately, it was 7 years ago now. I haven't seen it since, but I was fortunate enough to see the courtship behaviour of two Weedy sea dragons. And even though they're very stiff and rigid in the body, and their scales are fused to form ridges, they're quite able to bend. Bend both ways. They can bend at right angles vertically and right angles from side to side. So when they were dancing, they were sort of bending their bodies towards each other. It's a very beautiful thing to watch, actually. The very sophisticated courtship dance. Now, what we think is that the courtship is one-on-one and they are serially monogamous. Now, what that means is that they do form a pair bond at least for that year. And we're not sure about the following year, but they certainly they certainly bond with a male and female for the season and stay together. Now, I mentioned that they have the courtship in June, and then their first breeding cycle is probably in July, maybe early August. And they probably have 2 to 3 breeding cycles per season. We think they take about 6 weeks for the eggs to hatch. And then there's probably a rebuilding phase and then another breeding cycle. They stop breeding in probably about March. And they don't breed during April, May, and June. And the reason is most likely because it's getting colder, the days are getting shorter, and so the available planktonic food is going to decrease significantly. And so if a baby's born in, say, April, then it's likely that it may not be able to find enough plankton to feed on. So they have a break from breeding during autumn. They start breeding in midwinter. So the first babies are born probably late winter to getting towards spring. So the days are getting longer, more sunshine, more biological activity in the water, more food availability. So there's more chance of the babies being able to survive. Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed. Michael, can you just go to the photo before, if I may just ask a question, please?
Yep.
Yeah, just having a look at it. I'm fascinated if you have a look at the head of both of them, or what looks like the head. First of all, an observation. You're saying they had relating to what you said they had a very intricate courtship dance. It's amazing. They've sort of got a tiny little brain there, yet they know how to do that. That's a good thing. But from the top of the head, from the apex, and further down, there seems to be things that sort of like ears. What are those things at the top up there, please? And also down the other end, there's appendages, it seems. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, please?
Well, they're the ribbons that the Tony Lotus name refers to, ribbon-like appendages. We think they're probably to do with maintaining, their position. Like mostly
right.
they're paired, so they can look at the one in the back. There's 2 at the top, and they can probably help to sort of keep them vertical. And the one in the front's got 2 underneath that probably allow it to sort of remain in the desired position, I guess.
Yeah. And those things on the head, what are those things on the head and the back of the back of the head to the neck?
Well, they're probably also camouflagey, same sort of thing, just camouflagey appendages.
Okay, right.
The other one from South Australia's got far more appendages and they're far more cryptic. So I guess it's just being cryptic and breaking up the outline so they're camouflaged.
Thank you. And how fast can they really move if they get threatened? Can they?
Or when they're going like a rocket, they can travel about a metre or two a minute.
Okay.
So they're very, very slow, and they're completely helpless. Like there's a nasty fish called a clown toby that often comes in and bites their appendages off. Sometimes you see them with bite marks all over them. And these are fish that this got no protection at all. They can't escape. They just got to put up with being bitten and harassed.
Huh.
So it's a bit sad, really.
How do they survive? If they're effectively just a piece of floating protein like an octopus or something, are they? Why aren't they decimated?
Well, they are. I mean,
Oh, okay.
they do get hammered a fair bit. So when they mate, the female has she's able to place the eggs on the underside of the male's tail. He's got a special tissue there, a soft conjunctival tissue, and she places the eggs with some kind of adhesive substance that, like a glue.
Yeah.
And she's got a thing that's like an ovipositor. It's a tube that comes out of her cloaca that's able to place the eggs in position. And we think that he's able to have probably some sticky substance coming out of his cloaca with sperm on it, and she probably dabs it into the sperm and then plants it into his conjunctival tissue. But this is one of those things that you can't find information. I don't know whether anyone's actually seen this or studied it. So it's very hazardous to guess what's going on, but that's the most logical thing that I can think of. But those eggs are placed under his tail in this soft tissue where they receive some nutrients from his blood supply, and they take about 6 weeks to mature. Now you can see there's a little cling goby in the middle that's cleaning some of the bugs and things off the Weedy sea dragon. And you can see that some of the eggs have been eaten by whatever. Maybe even that goby's had a munch on an egg. So when they're born, they're inside the egg. They're like a circular orientation. When they come out, they're probably about half an inch long, and they're kelp coloured. We think they get born up in the really shallow water, probably where it's a bit warmer, and it's also much easier for them to hide in the seaweed. And then they have very rapid growth. They get to about 15 centimetres just in a few months. And then they start getting their adult colours. So the bland colours are probably good to help them camouflage as babies. They got really small gills, which are underneath the gill cover behind the eyeball, because they got a very low metabolism. The territory is about 130 metres, and they tend to live on the sand. This particular photograph was taken at about, say, 18 metres. And you can tell that one there's a male. He's got eggs under his tail. It's the best way to tell if they're males. Whereas that one there's most probably a female. They live on the sand line and they feed on mice and shrimps and other things. And they're very interactive. Like when you shine your torch near them, they look into your eyes, and I'm sure they recognise individual humans, and then they start feeding in the torchlight, and they seem to be able to communicate that they can see the food source better. It's a very wonderful experience to spend a few moments helping them to feed and so on. and then they look into your eye and you sort of think, hello. So it's, yeah, very, very pleasant thing to do. With individuals, we try and recognise particular spots. So if you're cataloguing them, what you should do is photograph them on the left side and the right side of their head. And if you look at the eyeball, just in front and underneath the eyeball, there's 4 little white dots that make up like a diamond. So I call this one, the diamond shape. So if I saw this sea dragon a month later, then and photographed it, I would know that it had a diamond shape under its eye. And I'd say, well, it's the same one. But the other way I've also called it 11 backstrokers. If you count the dots from right to left, the 11th dot is actually like a backstroke, a big long white backstroke. But it's just my way of trying to identify an individual using its spot pattern. And like a leopard, they all have unique spot patterns. And that's how you can identify individuals. Now, some scientists use special software, but I've never been able to get that to work. Just a few quick things about seahorses. There's 3 main kinds of seahorses in Sydney. Small ones called White's seahorse, Hippocampus white-eye. They can change their colour. You can see that on its head it's got a distinct coronet. And they're by far the smallest one. So there's the coronet there. And sexing seahorses is the same as sexing sea dragons. You can see the cloaca area under the belly is quite right-angled. Well, this one's a bit sloping, so it's a male of the second species, which is called the big-bellied seahorse, and it's much larger. So it's called Hippocampus abdominalis, as in big belly. And there's a young female hiding in the soft coral, and a young male. They also have a courtship behaviour, and we think it's initiated by the female. So can anyone tell which one's the female there? The right one or the left one?
Left one.
The left one, because it's got that distinctive cloaca under its tummy. And when she's about to lay eggs, she will send out a pheromone, and she will attract a male. Now, she will guard that male because she needs to put her eggs into his pouch. And so the female seahorses are actually quite proactive in terms of seeking out the males, because they have a biological need to implant. So when they're together, the male who's on the left has a big fat tummy, and the big belly has got a slit in it. And we think this is what he shows her prior to mating. He's saying, look, I've got a beautiful big tummy here. If you place your eggs in there, I'll fertilise them for you and I'll look after them. So we think it's a kind of a sort of a very powerful display that he does to say that he's ready for her eggs. And then so we went back the next day to try and see if there was any change. And of course, we couldn't find them. So the mating had taken place and it was all over Red Rover. But anyway, they'll stay together for a week or two until the mating occasion, and then they'll separate. But they won't go too far away from each other.
Whereabouts was that taken, please, Michael? Which location?
Most of these photographs are taken out at Cronulla
Okay.
at Botany Bay. So the other very special member of this family we've got there is the pygmy pipe horses. These grow to about 4 or 5 centimetres, and they're very cryptic and extremely special, and so very highly regarded by divers. So this is a male one sitting on some lace coral, some red bryozoan, and oh, up there. Anyway, you can sex the pygmy pipe horses the same way. They've got the same anatomical structures of male and female that the seahorses and sea dragons have. So these are tiny, so they feed on a smaller plankton, and they're extremely cryptic. So moving on, I'm going to do a little chat on wrasses for 5 minutes, and then let me know how we're going for time, please, Ian.
It's 8:11 at the moment.
Okay, the wrasse family is has got about 600 different kinds of species. Most of them are tropical. This is our local crimson-banded wrasse male, and they live to about 10 years, and they're sexually mature at 4 years. They've got a very strong sexual dimorphism. So we're going to look at some of the wonderful world of wrasses. This is a small wrasse that is common around Sydney called the rosy wrasse, Pseudolabris rubicundus. They've got a very long dorsal fin up the top, typically have very strong teeth, and very bright colours, and they've got a very friendly personality, very curious. So I like to quote famous people to make myself look intelligent, which is an old trick that I learned of Gary. Albert Einstein says there are 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other as though everything is a miracle. So that's what my attitude is to marine life. So this is the Maori wrasse. See the very brightly coloured male in this case. So there's some of the biodiversity of wrasses around the local area. And there's also a whole lot of tropical wrasse that I won't go into here. And it just goes on. It's a massive family and it's very fascinating to study. So they usually got fairly large pectoral fins, or you can't see this one. This one's called the southern Cleaner wrasse. It's very common in Jervis Bay. It's a very small one. And the most famous wrasse is the blue groper, which is probably the second biggest wrasse in the world. And it's a typical wrasse. It's got massive pectoral fins that it uses to swim like a parrotfish does. Massive teeth, capable of smashing open shells, very thick lips for protection, and very powerful scales, so it can deflect, attacks from other fish and so on. They're very active fish. They're always on the go, and as soon as it gets dark, they find a hidey hole and go to sleep all night. So you can see there, this is the male crimson-banded wrasse. It swims with its fins, its large pectoral fins, and doesn't use its tail like most fish do as much. This is another little tiny one that's common in Sydney called the black spot wrasse. They're fairly well studied because they're common fish. So this one here lives to about 13 and is sexually mature at 5. This one is a male, and males are like birds, if you like. They get very brightly coloured when they're in the mating season, and they actually become like electrically iridescent, very beautifully shiny and bright and spectacular. So that's how they advertise their fertility. So there's the female of the crimson banded wrasse. This is the male once again, and the female is a much less conspicuous colour. It's probably to do with the fact that they're better at camouflage and so on. Another very common species is the local chorus, the comb wrasse, and it's called Chorus picta. There's another green one called a senator wrasse, the one at the back. The one at the front's actually a half-banded perch. And they're unusual because in the wrasse family, they're always born female and they become male as at their terminal adult stage. But in the senator wrasse, they can be born male, which is a very strange exception in the wrasse world. This is a really beautiful one that's very common around Sydney, called the snakeskin wrasse. Like a lot of fish, they have elaborate mating rituals and they dance on their tail. And rather than have one gigantic breeding season, a breeding event during the year, they have a number of different breeding events that spawn continuously. So there's a continuous supply of fertilised eggs to maximise the survival of the species. Another relative of the wrasse is the rainbow kale, which is a common weed fish that lives in the seaweed. This is one that is very common as well, Gunther's wrasse. The ones that in Port Hacking are a greeny brown colour. This one here is from the Solitary Islands, but they can probably change their colour like most fish can. So it's a lot of pink soft coral up at the Solitary Islands near Cross Harbour. This is a very pretty one called the Lucentulus wrasse. This is the male, usually much more conspicuous than the female. So one of the things that divers are, I like to sort of say that divers are the cutting edge of knowledge. We can see things and we can record events like mating events or behavioural events, and so we can actually help the body of knowledge for scientists. One of the most interesting wrasses around here is called the Eastern King wrasse. This is the male, and during most of the year he's a very plain dull colour, but during the mating season he gets really very vivid and very showy. And the females, you can tell the females, they're always a lot much plainer. So there is a very a lot of good night diving around Sydney. The marine life around Sydney is quite interesting at night. A lot of things come out that don't come out during the daytime. So you can have some pretty spectacular experiences. Now, how are we going with time, Ian?
It's 8:19, so I don't know if you want to keep. I'll keep going. I'm sure it sounds fascinating to me. You do another 10 minutes if you like, for sure.
All right. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll just say a few things about. I like to try and explain a little bit. Like I did a lot of teaching of diving, and when I was teaching diving, I'd take every opportunity to try and show people something about the marine life. So if we found this is a molt of a crab, I'd pick it up and I'd lift up its abdominal flap there, and underneath it there's 10 little very hairy legs, and that is a female. Now the male uh, abdomen is about a third as wide, and there's only 3 little legs because 2 of the legs have been modified for sperm transfer. And the reason why the female's got such a broad abdomen, which is folded underneath her main body, is that when the eggs are fertilized, she stores the eggs on the hairy legs with a special glue. And that's why you see crabs running around with hundreds of eggs underneath their tail. So it's a special adaptation for her to carry the eggs so they're protected until they hatch. So this particular painted lobster is from the Barrier Reef, but there are painted lobsters at Southwest Rocks, and over the last few years we've been seeing little tiny blue ones about 5 or 6 centimetres long, which are the babies that come down in the East Australian current in Sydney. So they're not uncommon. So that even the larvae can swim down from, say, around Coffs Harbour and Southwest Rocks and as far as Sydney, and they obviously can't survive the winter, but they can certainly find a hidey hole for a while. This is the eastern spiny lobster, which is a very large lobster from up at Foster. This was only taken a few weeks ago. Unfortunately for these guys, humans eat too many of them, and they have caused a massive unbalance in the ocean because they're thought to prey on a lot of sea urchins, and because the lobsters have been taken away, the sea urchins have been in plague proportions, and they very quickly mow down all the kelp. Sometimes it's devastating to see a massive garden of kelp which is destroyed in just a week or two by thousands of sea urchins. They're very voracious feeders. And this is a tropical one called the ornate lobster. We have a lot of hermit crabs. This one was taken at Fish Rock and Southwest Rocks. And if you look in the book, it says it comes from the Philippines. So a lot of things in the ocean are travelling, wide distances around the world. There's a very large dispersal of a lot of species. So all the hairs on its body detect movement for water, and they help to protect it from being attacked. So this is a tropical boxer crab with a lot of eggs under her tail. And she's got a little anemone in her claws there, which she waves at people taking photographs to try and sting them, to tell them to go away. That's a boxer crab. There's a lot of parasites in the ocean, as everyone knows. This is a parasitic isopod taken in Sydney, and it's drilling a hole between the scales of this mowong and sucking the blood out of it. So it must be extremely painful for the fish. There's a tropical tiger shrimp and some porcelain crabs. This is another very common occurrence around Sydney. This is a little cleaner clingoby. They often attach themselves to the red fan sponges, and there's a little 3 green things at the end of it. They're egg cases of a parasitic copepod. So you can see that there's like a shiny egg-shaped thing. That's the actual parasitic copepod. And the three green things are just bundles of eggs that it's produced. And this is another little isopod taken from Cronulla. It's about a centimetre long. And it's got a very pretty little thing, but they hide in amongst all the seaweed. Very hard to find. We have a very rich population of cephalopods and mollusks. I like to say that there's no weirder life form on planet Earth because they've got so many amazing features. One of the features is that they have this thing called super learning, where they can learn everything they need to know in probably 12 months, whereas humans have, it takes us about 25 years for our brains to fully develop and for us to become, as intelligent. But these guys have this form of intelligence, which is I call rapid learning. It's probably the equivalent of getting a university degree when you're 3 years of age. They also have toxins. This is a pajama squid, and you can take it on a night dive in Sydney. This is the local, one of the local 3 species of cuttles, and it's got a brilliant ability to change its shape and its colour, and they're very, very common. We have the world's largest sepia, or cuttle. I don't call them cuttlefish because they haven't got any bones. So this is the world's largest cuttle, and that's a pose, which is a threat pose. It's basically saying, I'm going to attack you, and if you come any closer, I'm going to attack you and bite you. So it's kind of like a warning pose. I'm very concerned about cuttlefish because there's so many spearos around Sydney at the moment that we're not seeing cuttlefish at all, hardly seeing any octopus. So I think they're being preyed upon by humans, which is a bit sad. But anyway, that's the world's largest cuttle, which is endemic to Sydney. And these animals also have jet powers. They can squirt water through their mantle and rapid acceleration underwater. They also have extremely good eyesight. It's almost as good as a human eye, except that scientists sort of argue whether maybe the human eye has the advantage in processing power in our brain that is far superior. But the skin contains a lot of optically sensitive proteins called opsins, and it can detect wavelengths of light and mimic the colours of the surrounding by changing their little colour cells in their skin. So we call it thinking skin. So their skin is able to detect the colours of the surroundings and then match, say, the kelp or the rock or the seaweed, and allow them to change colour almost instantaneously. So they've got colour change in a split second. And they're a very powerful predator, and they're very, very curious. And if they do attack, they can easily catch a fish, and they can bite the fish through the spine easily and just break the spine in probably half a second. So they've got a very powerful beak inside their tentacles. So this is taken to Bear Island. So you have an octopus that grabbed hold of my don't point of a camera with its sucking tentacles, and so the octopus can do jet powered swimming, but also is able to walk along the seafloor, which is its preferred method of locomotion. And this is the world's largest blue ring. It's it's called the lunula is its scientific name, but it's the tropical version. We have the blue lined blue ring octopus in Sydney called Haploclinia lineata. And so, as I said, they've got thinking skin. They can change their colour on sight. And that might be a good time to call it quits, Ian. What do you reckon?
Oh, thank you, Michael. This has been fascinating. Yeah, it is actually 8:30. How do people feel? They had enough. But Brian, what do you think?
Oh, I think we might have probably exhausted Mike at this stage. What's your next topic, Mike?
Oh, let me have a little look.
Can you go to the picture of the grey nurse, the two grey nurses, if possible, at that cave? Wherever it was. Maybe up a bit. Maybe there in the middle, number 11, yeah. Michael, if I can just ask a question, please. You said that their teeth are very good for catching small fish. I guess if you blow it up and we have a look, you can see quite a lot of sharp spike-like teeth. As a in a position of ignorance, if they do catch the fish with that and get them on their teeth, how do they then get them off their teeth and swallow them? How does it? They don't have a tongue, do they? How do they chomp the fish up? I guess.
They tend to swallow them whole, but the teeth are pointing backwards so the fish can't escape.
Right. Okay. Right.
So they're more for they grab a hold of the fish, they impale the fish, then they swallow them head first whole.
Okay.
But
Right.
they probably don't taste them very much.
Well, thank you for that. Amazing too. The fins, as it were, at the bottom, ventral fins. There's sort of like two pairs, isn't there? Sort of like two arms and two legs, as it were.
Yeah, well, they help them to maintain their position,
Yep.
and also to turn and bank and
Yep.
brake and so on. And most of their thrust comes from their tail, obviously.
Right.
But they're very good at like they can turn on a dime. They can
moving around. Yeah.
they're very.
And they've got two dorsal fins. Is that right? Two
dorsal fins. Yep.
Amazing.
And they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful fish to swim with, especially if you're swimming with like 20 or 30 of them. They're very polite, very gentle. They swim around you. If you get in their road, they kind of tolerate you. They've got amazing personality, very docile. But just to make,
I'm going to say they've got a beautiful profile. You know, if you designed a fish to get through the water, look at that shape. It's a beautiful profile.
Yeah, they're very beautiful. Well, that reminds me, I've written another book called The Marine Biology of Sharks, which I've sort of only published a couple of months ago. So, which I've gone into, the celebration of the marine biology of sharks and that sort of thing. So,
where's that available?
Well, I've got them here, but I don't know how to get them to people if people want to buy a book. Oh, there's actually two copies of both of my books in the Sutherland Library.
Okay.
And I think it may be Engadine as well.
Yeah, right. There's a person, Cheryl Kay, who's got a question. Cheryl, can you just unmute before you ask your question? Thank you.
Hi, Mike. I'm just wondering, with the grey nurse shark, I understand they've got two uteri. Is that common amongst sharks or is it unique to grey nurse?
In my book, I've got a whole chapter on shark reproduction. Um, like they've all got two uteri, and like say a great white shark can have maybe 6 babies, but what the grey nurse does is they the largest baby, when it gets to about say 25 to 30 centimeters and starts growing teeth, it eats all its siblings,
No.
and and then when all its siblings have been eaten in that particular uterus, the mother keeps supplying eggs. So the embryo is actually feeding through through its mouth, as well as getting nourishment, from the uterus, and so they're famous for their fetal cannibalism.
Mm.
So the idea being that when the baby's born, I think the babies are born at close to 1 metre in length. But when they're born, they're able to hunt for themselves, and they're much less likely to be eaten by, say, like a cod or something like that, because they're too big for them to eat. So it's a very effective way of ensuring their survival.
Right.
But yeah, good question, Cheryl.
Michael, in contrast to the females, if they've got two uterus, what do the males got, and how does sexual intercourse occur?
All right. Well, I've got a whole lecture on that. Males have got two claspers. See if I can find you a picture of a male's. Oh, hang on. And so it's internal reproduction. And so what happens is that the male, well, when they're about to mate, she produces pheromones, and so the male comes on. They have a mating ritual where he grabs her by the pectoral fin,
Yep.
and then he turns her on her side and then upside down, and then he enters her at right angles, and then they twist their body so they're lined up.
Yep.
Now, it sounds all pretty strange, but I did a lot of research, and I found out that a shark expert from America was observing bull sharks, and he had a very large female bull shark and a very small male, and he said that the female got the male interested, and then she laid down in front of him, on her back, so he could engage in mating.
Yep.
And then, so she was actually completely, totally in control of the whole process.
Right. The
And
male
she,
has a penis. Does the male have a penis in effect?
it's got well, they're modified. They're called claspers. There's two of them, and there's a tube going through the end of the clasper that transmits the sperm.
Yeah, right.
So it's internal reproduction.
Mm.
I haven't got any photographs of.
That's okay. Next presentation.
There's something down the bottom here.
There's a shark on the right there, photo number 96. Above that. That one. Is that any good?
That's a female. That's a can't tell. That's another female there. The cloaca is between the anal fins there, and the males have got two long claspers.
Okay. Yeah, right.
There, so
yep.
that's a female bull shark. That's a female tiger shark. Um, I haven't got any male sharks at all. Oh,
Okay.
blimey.
No worries. Thank you very much anyway. Well, if anyone's got any more questions, please ask, because we have Mike on hand ready to answer your questions.
I might ask Mike, do blue groper eat sea urchins other than when divers feed them to them?
Yeah, they got really powerful teeth, and they can smash shells, and they can they certainly do, but they uh, I think they eat whatever they can. They chomp into bits of uh, congee or bits of uh, seashells and that. Um, we sometimes just turn a sea urchin over, and they'll just come in and smash it up themselves.
Mm.
But it's the sort of question. I don't really know everything they eat. They've probably got to.
Oh.
You probably have to catch one and open its tummy up to see what's inside.
No, we don't want to do that.
No, that's what scientists do, unfortunately.
Are they too big for sharks, or some of those wrasses and things, or how do they protect themselves against sharks?
Well, their scales are like armor. Like if you they're very powerful. Like when somebody hits them, they get deflected off.
No, right.
But I think they seem to be the dominant. So kind of what the alpha we call the dominant
Yep.
fish in the area.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they
And
certainly seem so. Yeah.
yeah, well, because they live for up to 25 years.
Mm.
One got killed on Saturday actually
Oh,
at Cronulla. We were diving at
oh.
Cronulla, and there were some spearos there, and someone posted up that there was a dead blue groper found,
Mm.
and it's not fair to put two and two together, but uh, they they're such a friendly fish, and they're so tame. Yeah, anyway, I won't go there.
Certainly, what you're touching on, I think, is that there's an enormous case for conservation and no take zones, and it seems like reading between the lines, what you're saying, these spear fishermen, I think you call them spearos or something, they're really causing quite some damage to the ecosystem.
Look, in the Barrier Reef, the Barrier Reef's got green zones which are protected, and it's got pink zones which are absolute no-go research only zones.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that the fish life is reproducing, it's coming back, and there's blue zones where fishing is allowed, where everything's been killed and everything's dead.
Yep.
Pretty much all of New South Wales is open slather. There's almost nothing. There's tiny bits of marine parks that are protected.
Yep.
But they're like 1/100% if that. What we need basically is the same thing in Queensland. We need protected zones where the fish can breed. But people don't seem to understand that if they allow fish stocks to rebuild, then there'll be far better fishing for them anyway. But Queensland's got this model where the management of the ocean is it's going to make the Barrier Reef the world's top destination for diving, because most other parts in the world haven't got protection for the fish, and the fish life is being exploited too much.
I recall hearing once, and this was years ago, how there are, I think maybe around Indonesia or something like that, there are places in the world anyway where there's marine conservation areas, and the fish are just there in enormous numbers. They're breeding successfully, and the quotation was the fish sort of they know that they're in a zone where it's safe to be, and as I guess with overpopulation of those areas, the fish themselves spread out and help enrich the rest of the world. But yeah, so that's perhaps what we've got going in Queensland, Michael.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I went to the Solomons in February,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, the reefs there were heavily fished, and it was actually quite sad to dive on them.
Yeah.
I went to the Barrier Reef last November and also in January, and in a green zone, and the diving is just beautiful. The fish are plentiful, they're tame, they're not afraid, they haven't been murdered. This buddy, they're just wonderful. So that's the model we need all around Australia. They need to protect the southern part of Australia as well, because the Barrier Reef is rebounding brilliantly. And what they found is that because the fish life is rebounding, the reefs are healthier, and so
Yep.
affecting all the sedentary life. So it's also showing improvements.
Actually, I can't see Gary on the participants list at the moment, but Gary's done a great amount over decades to try and increase marine conservation and get no take zones. And it's worthwhile mentioning, probably everyone or most people would know this, but in Port Hacking we have Shiprock, I think it's called. Is that right, Brian?
It is, but Mike knows it better than everybody that I know.
Yeah. And I've passed it on a boat, and it's been pointed out to me a number of times. And it's such a poor, pathetic little region, isn't it, compared to the whole of Port Hacking?
Yeah. By the way, Ian, Gary left a thank you message for Mike
Oh,
and
oh,
then needed to leave.
okay, yeah, right. All right. Well, has anyone else got anything they would like to ask? So,
I think we're down to only a handful now, Ian. I think
yeah,
it's
we've got
yeah.
with participants, we've got 11. Look, Michael, thanks very much for a fantastic presentation. As I said, the colours are really spectacular. I think, well, if everyone's like me, I've learned a lot tonight, and it's been very enriching. So thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thanks for the opportunity to show some photos and things. So it's
Yeah.
much appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I will
Yeah.
stop the recording now, and then we'll finish up. So